All right, guys, welcome to 3M Affairs podcast. Today we have two very special guests. With us is Jim Fagan and Ali Keller, director and producers of Zero Issue, a project I also worked on as an art director.
Together again.
We're going back together again, going back a few years now. But so just to give us a little context, where the project started from, the initial conception, the idea, and just generally where we're at now with everything.
Yes, awesome. I'll talk about where it started from, and Ali, you can talk about where we're at now, since you keep all that in your brain, I think, much better than... At some point in our insane shoot, Brandon, I think that my brain just fell out of my ears, and Ali scooped it up. So I can talk about everything before that point, for sure. Zero Issue, filmed by New York Picture Company with my creative partners, Matt Cullen and Zach Bibelo. We... had been making tons of online sketch comedy. We shot some commercials. We sold a few of those. We had been sort of doing that thing, and then we realized we wanted to kind of try to do something more substantial. And like everything, we bit off more than we could chew, but did find a way to swallow it anyway. And so we decided we wanted to make a film together. We decided eventually, after a lot of Post-it notes talking about different things it could be, that we wanted it to be the kind of movie we wanted to make, that we would want to be paid to make. And since we couldn't decide, would that be a mockumentary or would that be a Marvel movie, we decided to do both at the same time. And make a superhero mockumentary, and then the inspiration kind of came out of our own insecurities, our own experiences at film festivals. And in this movie, it's a bunch of independent superheroes trying to attend an independent superhero festival to become, all-star big city heroes. Their dreams will come true with one festival, of course. And we took it from there. I think that's the origin story, which is what Zero Issue kind of means. That's the Zero Issue of Zero Issue. And then Ali came on board to help us make the insane 2 years of writing we did on the paper turn into a movie. Which
is wild, because I think the shoot was 3 weekends?
Yes, two-day weekends, but I would say we shot... What do you think, Brandon? Like, I would say 22 of 24 hours each one of those days, it felt like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We shot a lot.
Fully.
We shot a lot.
Fully.
We were pumping it out.
Yeah.
And then one, like, delightful Saturday where we only had to do 14 hours in Queens, indoors. Yeah.
In a town with self-service and heat, which was
and bathrooms.
And bathrooms. It was great.
Hey,
it was such an
I'm
upgrade.
from upstate New York. I know that's a luxury where I come from, so I totally feel you.
Absolutely.
This is very fun.
Well, just a quick there was something beautiful about getting out of the city for the couple weekends, especially right in the middle of, school at the studio. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So
it was super fun, but it was nice to have easy bathroom access.
Since you bring up coming out while in school, it is the kind of... I remember being... So we both went to the same school. Did you guys as well? Are you guys all...
Yeah, I was just going to say... So the reason we got this 3M Affairs thing going is that we all graduated in 2019 from the Actors Studio Drama School. I did the directing track, Caleb did the playwriting and acting, and Brandon did the acting. So... we all kind of, when Brandon told us that you had gone, Jim, through the program as well, I'm like, oh, good, somebody could speak my language.
Yes.
Have the same experiences that I did as a director. But, which is interesting because, as we all know, and I don't know if you were going into this, Jim, that it's crazy. I don't know what year you guys filmed. Well, Brandon, you said it was our second year?
Second.
Yeah, so second year
we were in second
awful.
year, yeah.
In terms of the program, it's kind of like they'd say the redheaded stepchild of the program, because the first year, the teachers are always, babying the first years, and then the third years they're preparing to leave the school, and so the second years are just kind of stuck in the middle of the work, and so obviously, Brandon getting that opportunity to have those breaks on the weekends, I would have loved that, Yeah,
it's a big dropout year, and I think it is helpful.
Yeah.
while I was still at school, because 3 years is a long time to like train to be an artist, and you're just like, I want to do it. Yes, you're doing it at the school, but you're kind of like looking out the window all the time, like literally sometimes being like,
the window of the great prison.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think that's pretty cool to get to do that because, I remember that burning desire to I want to make something now. I don't want to wait.
Right. And seeing the practical application of, the fact that especially you were a graduated director already. So seeing the exact practical application of where this is all supposed to be going was
awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could see it. I was.
I was gonna ask, how did that apply? Because your character you play the Soviet or the Russian
Comrade Carl.
Comrade Carl. But you also directed it too, and like Caleb and I are in the process of putting together our own little short ourselves because we're finally at the point where we're getting some friends from our cohort together to do like a simple set, like apartment, whatever. And like, but I, this whole week I've been doing my directing thing and like mapping it all out and planning everything. And then I realized, oh shit, I have to actually learn my lines and like make acting choices too. Okay, cool. So I had to spend hours doing, and I didn't know like how that was with Zero Issue. If because your character, Comrade Carl, comes in later. Like he's referenced, but he comes in later. So you had a smaller section than the other creators did, acting in it. But how did that correlate? And, what did you learn from that process? I guess going from like the shorts to like a shorter, longer movie, whatever.
Oh God, yeah, that's fun. That's fun to talk about because I don't think, talked about that or thought about it. First of all, we played the parts ourselves because we realized the abuse we were going to be putting these actors through, and we were like, no one's going to take it except for us. And in a way, if you're making a short, it's nice to find that thing about it that's really personal. So the dynamics of us working together and being Zach and I, who played Jan, are best friends going back to his sophomore year, my freshman year of high school. And then we went to college together as well. And Matt, who is the lead actor and the writer of the film, went to college with us. So that friendship those are real pictures with Matt's face photoshopped in from high school from Zach and I. And then some real, like those are real photos in the film of us. So being able to kind of paint ourselves into it, it helped make up for any shortcomings we have as actors. We just were able to live our realities sometimes, which is helpful. And it helped, I think, at times when it got tough, to kind of keep it going, to have that kind of personal well, I mean, we had too much personal stakes in it probably, but that scene, Allie, do you remember? I feel bad, actually. I'm over here to lift the curtain. I feel bad because I was so excited to talk about the MFA. Allie has not gotten to talk about anything yet.
No, it's totally fine. I don't remember what the first question was because I was very interested about the grad school conversation because I'm not a grad school kid, so it's all,
congratulations
news to me. Thank you.
For escaping.
What's it like to have money and career experience instead of...
I can really only speak to the latter. The money thing hasn't really manifested quite yet. But I will say I was laughing because I was just trying to, like, I knew the reality of you and Matt and Zach stepping in front of the camera and out of the camera throughout the day. But I also was laughing because I got to know Brandon so well on that set, but all my memories of him are just running. Because the two of us spent the entire time running. So I think we kind of got to know each other more after the shoot than actually during it. Yeah. But I will say that for me, because of the nature of the set and what producing was, and we were doing simultaneous things all the time, I was always next to set, but so much of my job is making sure we're ready to go to the next thing and putting out the fires that happened while we were shooting that. I don't really know what happened in the moment because I was like, that's happening. My job is done. Where are we going? I don't care unless somebody pulls me over because somebody got hurt, we lost a thing or something happened. That to me is done and I'm going to the next. So I remember knowing that when Jim stepped in front of the camera, Drew was going to have more responsibilities, and so did Adam, who was handling special effects. But like, I remember like clocking that was starting, and I was like, off the list, on to the next thing, and have no idea how that flowed while we did it.
That's the perfect lead-in, though, to my answer, to be honest, because the truth is, there was so much to do, and our hair was so on fire the whole time, and that actually the morning of the Comrade Carl scene, which was the last scene we shot in Screw Lake, so really it felt like the end of the movie. That day was all in the high school gymnasium, and it felt like we had to get the whole end of the movie, the whole third act. And but that morning, I don't know, Brendan, if you remember, we were reshooting because we had lost footage. So we had shot the whole scene in the bar. We lost the B camera for the entire bar scene.
Yes,
and
we did.
I won't go into how, but it was not pleasant. And when so we were
pleasant.
like, you know,
Still traumatized.
It was
from that
awful.
moment.
We shot that weekend one. When we realized that we had to redo it weekend two, we were like, okay, I'm gonna go to set, do that. We're gonna get this again. And Adam Harem, bless his soul, who is our visual effects supervisor and a director himself, and supervisor, he did everything that was fancy, he did. And then he was like, okay, I'll start getting the B-roll of the party. I'll get, Wonder Dog in front of the green screen. I'll get this shit over at the gym. I'll get it started. You go reshoot the footage. Great. By the time I got back to the gym, I was like, okay, now what? And I turned to my right, and Netta had my costume and was like, put your costume on. I was like, oh, fuck. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse
please
on this.
Curse all you
No rules.
I was just like, I remember looking at it being like, oh my God, I hadn't looked at my lines. I hadn't looked at the script. I hadn't thought. I was just like, okay, here we go. Luckily, I'm playing a giant asshole in this thing. It's just, I didn't need to drop in. I didn't need my green light. I just was like, okay, I put on a stupid voice and a big helmet, and let's go do it, kind of. And
but as you were saying before, I mean, it all rolled because with Zach and with Matt, the chemistry was there, and you guys are playing old friends, so the layers of it were.
And as the director,
there. I mean, there was so much
acting
improv.
the whole world of the film as the director the entire time, and in your brain, you're acting everybody's roles, and you're trying to. Gotcha. Oh, that's an interesting choice. Great, good. That works. I don't understand what that is. Whatever. The whole time. So it's just. It took a second to be like, okay, I have to do that on the outside now, but for the most part, it was just a continuation of the excitement. And then we shot the first 2 pages of that scene for 6 hours, and we took a dinner break, and Adam came up to me and he was like, because I was setting up all my shots still, looking at the footage, and Adam came up to me and he was like, you're doing a great job, but you're not going to finish your movie, so I'm going to do this now, and you're just going to act for the chaos. Once you're firing lasers out of your helmet, stop, goodbye, you're done, I'm going to get it, and we're going to. And I don't think we would have finished the movie if he hadn't done that. And
because there was the flag bit that had to be set up.
And so
there's a lot.
You'll notice if you watch it, my entrance has 17 camera angles, and then it's one camera just running around shooting the rest of the chaos. And in a perfect world, if I was going to act in something I was directing again, I would schedule out twice the time, because I don't love that I didn't look at everything. Adam's great, but we got into edit, and there was a couple of lines missing, things that are just, they're not his job. They're not his job to do that. He just helped a sinking ship stay afloat and get to shore. He was amazing. But I would in the future, something I didn't know, actually, 2 things. If you're doing special effects, probably you need to, and visual effects, you probably need to multiply by 3 what you think you need in terms of time. And then you need to double that if you're the director. You just need the time as an actor, and then to set aside, and that's just gonna be slow. But I would have preferred to look at everything and go at that early pace, but we would have all died and the movie wouldn't have been done.
Well, but it's also now remembering, as you were saying, there was that extra shoot that had to go in the morning and get fit in before we left Shroom Lake, so things got crazy.
That was fall 2017. Allie, had you come on by then?
Yeah, Jim and I have known each other for a long time from working together on some Live for Lincoln Center stuff, and working with the same theater company. And then, we're out living our lives. And I sent Jim a very random email at some point right before they started fundraising for the film, and was just like, will you please get coffee with me and just explain film? I think that's what my entire email said. I was like, you can do this in an hour, right? Just explain it to me. And he met up with me, and he gave me a lot of great advice, was talking about the film, and was like, the best way to learn about stuff is by doing it. Would you, we're looking for somebody to work on it. Do you want to work on it? You can interview with the rest of the guys. And I was like, yeah, sure. And fully thought he meant PAing, because I sent an email asking what film was. So I have not been on set. I don't have this experience to do anything else. And then I got an email from the team that was like, hey, you have an interview to be an associate producer. And I was like, Jim, I am not qualified to be an associate. I don't know where that got lost in translation.
We weren't qualified to be interviewing you, so it was a perfect fit.
And I was like, okay. So I came on probably, I think it was either around or right after the fundraiser, and then it was there for all of pre-production and filming and through post and stuff. And I think I got bumped up to producer at some point.
But I haven't,
after the fact.
We've told this story a few times, but I haven't had the chance, because this audience will actually understand immediately. Allie had stage managed for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
3 times, I feel like. When Zach was like, I desperately need somebody, because Zach was producing the film, but at the same time as living his large life that we're all trying to live at, and it was hard. He was like, I just desperately need somebody reliable who I'll teach them up, but and Allie was the perfect fit. I knew immediately that the scheduling was going to work. Nothing was going to fall through the cracks. And what I didn't know is that Allie would keep this movie afloat all these years, literally take it on as her own and make it, I guess somewhere I knew how reliable and awesome you were, but I don't think any of us knew it would go on this long. And it was the only reason that we're here talking today is Allie, because she's keeping the push going and keeping the film getting distributed and seen. And it's just which is why she's not the associate producer anymore. She's a lead producer on the film.
Yeah. Well, that's the first I'm hearing of that. I would have figured that you had years and years of producer experience, because it was, the amount of balls that were in the air that had to be juggled during this shoot. And again, it was 5 days, 6 days, and everyone's crammed in. So it was so impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love I had such a good time on the shoot, and it was so insane. There's so many things, but I'm also I'm not a stage manager or anything by trade. I've done this to learn and whatever, but so I've done a lot of on the job learning in the past. But I remember our last pre-production meeting the night before we were all driving up for the first shoot, and Jim had turned to me and Drew, and he was like, this is your set now, guys. You're running things. And I just could feel the color drain out of my face. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? I've never been on a set. Why do I have to keep saying that? And was in the car with Drew driving up, and it was 6 hours of me running through everything that could happen in the day, just over and over and over again. So it means so much when people from set are like, oh my God, I thought you've been doing this for years. Because I was it was full panic for the whole time until we left, for me.
Same.
Personally.
Yeah, I love that, because I remember doing that, and I remember thinking, what a great inspirational moment, Jim. You're such a good director. Patting myself on the back while good job, Jim. You did a great job today, wandering away.
In a way, though, it was, because I think for me, I don't know if it would work on other people, but as terrifying as it was, one, it was a good reality check to know that going in, because it wouldn't have been where my mind went immediately. But I think, too, I think the times I've grown the most in my career across the board have been the times where it's you have that very quiet moment where you're okay, you either rise to the occasion or you are the reason that this fails. Which one of those things do you want to be? And then you kill yourself to try to make the thing happen.
Well, it was also a peril of indie filmmaking because everyone's wearing so many hats. You weren't just producing at that point. You were the second AD on set, I feel like. And Drew was the AD, and that is actually true. Like, once you get on set, it's your AD's set. Like, they're allowed to yell at me, the director. They're, like, allowed to crack the whip on everybody. So, just terrifying.
I find that, like, going into these projects, if you don't have that level of anxiety or panic, it's not going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a level of care, and that if you're not nervous, then there's something wrong with you, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that's actually really awesome. And I think
that's true. I feel like you don't want to be... It's fine if it's like a runaway elephant that you're trying to control. You don't want, like... this metaphor is going to be insanely weird. That is only going to make sense to me. But you don't want it to be like a runaway donkey that you're trying to turn into an elephant. Like there are times in which like chaos is just chaos. But I think if it's just like it is what it is, which in our case it was this giant behemoth of a thing that we were like, how do we control this? It was all there in front of us. It just took a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety to keep it under control.
Yeah, I think it also does, like, it depends on what shoot you're coming from and which one you're going to. Because what I love, too, about Zero Issue, it was, like, so many things about it that are, like, for your first shoot, like, it's so high of, like, simultaneous sets and a huge amount of people, and we're traveling and all of this stuff. So, like, later on film 2 or 3, when I'm working with a director and they're like, we need an office space. What are we going to do? And I was like, an office space? I did 3 sets across a town with no cell service. Get out of my way. We're going to be fine. So, like, I think, too, like, you learn from everything and then you're calmer about some stuff and only the new stuff is anxiety riddled. But, like, I'm so calm on so many sets because I was like, we'll find an office space. We're fine. Yeah. This is easy. So, depends.
Well, and I think there was this feeling on set that was definitely fostered. That was, it was such a creative project so that everybody wanted to be running around and wanted to be, fixing problems as quickly as possible because it was, there was a passion for everything that was going on. And that's
the beauty of the kind of project we're making too. In a mockumentary, that energy that you can capture that. Like you can, which we did to you guys, you can take crew and toss them into scenes all the time and roll on them and give them characters and give them lines and all of this stuff that because you're just like, that's the energy and that it fit what we were trying to do, I think, which was good.
Which was, I mean, I think really, really cool with the rest of the cast as they would get rolled in and out, and I think a lot of them, if I'm not mistaken, were like your guys' friends from the past. So you knew a lot of them. So there was great relationships already there, but the attitudes of everybody coming in was just, wasn't a diva
it was
insight.
An amazing group of people. I mean, it had to be, they were sleeping with strange, like it was 50-50 people we knew, people we cast off of, out of New York, but also, the people we knew didn't all know each other necessarily. They all knew us. And then they're all sleeping in cabins together, like 3 people in a cabin the size of the room I'm sitting in, right? Like it was crazy and intimate. And we're very lucky because if you throw an asshole into that mix, it could go wrong in a hurry.
That's true. Like very quickly. And there was just none of that, which was great.
It was all good people, which was really great.
That's great.
So with the project, it's in the festival circuits now, or update on where we're at, Allie?
Sure. We're in the process of submitting to a bunch of festivals. We just had our first festival premiere at Big Apple, I think 2 weeks ago, something like that. And Jim got to go to the drive-in version of it, which is awesome and super exciting. Hopefully we'll actually be able to see it in a movie theater at one of these festivals at some point. But who's to say? But we've been doing all of that. We were semi-finalists at Dumbo back in September, which was really cool and exciting. So we've had pretty good luck so far. We're waiting to hear back from a ton of things. And then in the process, we're just talking to podcasts and, online magazines and that kind of stuff, just getting the word out on it. For the most part,
trying to get as many people to see the film as humanly possible, I feel like.
Yeah, and I hope that our discussion today, going more behind the scenes and like the process, to use a buzzword from school, behind filmmaking, doesn't necessarily scare people off, but also kind of realize that, we started this podcast during the quarantine, like we kind of Caleb came to us and was like, guys, we love movies. We're watching a bunch of them. Why don't we get down and like actually talk about them, and leads to moments like this where we can bring other artists and creators on and kind of sit here and go, like, you guys had a really good product come out of all of this work a few years ago. And like, how do you sustain that? How do you go, because you said you filmed in 2017, you've been kind of like circulating it, but it didn't, I watched it on the YouTube link that Brandon shared with us. But that was released in April. You guys had it on a little bit in April. So it was 2.5 years of, and I'm assuming because to do a superhero movie, you have to, it's all the special, it's really all just post, and
it's both
effects.
of the things. It's the superhero movie is half of it, and then the mockumentary is half of it. We shot like 6 hours of footage, like we had to get into a 35-minute movie, which for short is a behemoth. It was a lot.
Well, that was definitely one of the things that I wanted to bring up, was Matt and his improv. Like I'm surprised there was only 6 hours, because there'd be scenes that we were shooting and I'd be in like a green suit.
Oh, I'll never forget it.
Moving stuff around for him. But he just would be improvising and cracking jokes, and I'd keep laughing. So we'd have to like stop and get, because he's hilarious. But the amount of just natural content that was coming out on top of like, you get the lines and then just let them run, and it was just across the board.
It was. What was amazing in the edit was we were, because a mockumentary has so many documentary vibes to it, and because we got so much stuff, there was like rewriting that was happening in the edit, and a recognition that this part of the story is not clear, this part. So we would literally be like, we really need him to say something that's like sort of like this. And then we'd be like, okay. And we'd watch like 45 minutes of one of those takes. And we'd be like, he says it half of it here. So let's take that. Wow. And then we'd watch like another 45 minutes. We'd be like, oh, he said, and that's because Matt's AJ, who edited it, and Matt, they both produce reality TV, and so they are experts at this. And so it was incredible how, Zach would be like, we just ran like 4 hours behind so that you could have Matt like tell the story of how his dad's balls got shrunk with radiation like 5 times. Like, why did you? And it's like, well, first of all, I did it just because that to me was the most fun I had on set, when it was just like me and Matt or me and Zach, and we're just doing that stuff. And so I definitely indulged more than I should have. Because in the end, that's the movie. That sort of bullshit is the movie. Yeah.
Right. That's the comedy of it.
Now, how much was it? Did you guys pretty much, for the most part, though, stick to what was originally written, or was it kind of split 50-50? What did you guys end up coming? What was the final product versus the workshopping and the writing? And
I think so. I think it's pretty common with these kind of movies. You film what's on the page, and then if time is permitting, you're like, okay, now everybody go off the rails. In larger group scenes, like there's a scene where he's talking to all the people of the town through a megaphone, and Wonder Dog shows up. That's just like off the page. There's too many people and too many moving parts. He can ad lib a little bit or riff while he's going, but for the most part, he does his thing, and feeds off of people and keeps it natural. I think that then there's the monologue, the talking heads. Half of them are unscripted. Almost everything that Jan says. That was on that final day of shooting where we had extra time, and we were like, we want Jan to be a bigger character, so sit in this chair, and Matt gave him 10 pages of backstory, and he like read them all, and he was like, I'm not saying this is impossible, I can't memorize this. So, and then he just started riffing, and I think a lot of that comes through. Yeah, so it's that kind of mix.
Yeah, and again, the innate relationships that you guys actually have.
Especially when Jan is supposed to really hate Dale, it was pretty easy for Zach to just funnel his years of working with Matt into his feelings. Yeah.
That's how I like to think Caleb and I work.
It all seemed right there.
I could tell. Yeah,
Open
it's good.
contempt.
There's a good vibe there.
Feels.
And then the other thing I did want to bring up is when watching it, the practical effects. I'm blanking
Anthony,
on
yes.
Anthony, yeah.
Anthony. Oh my!
So good.
I'm so glad you did because we haven't talked about him yet. And actually, there's sometimes, we've done a couple of superhero podcasts and stuff like that. And he hasn't come up yet, which is an absolute crime. He is amazing. I want to look up his last name really quick because I want to make sure to shout him out.
Mataloni or something.
Yes.
Of similar.
Yes, it is Anthony Mataloni. You nailed it, Allie. So Anthony is amazing. Come on this journey with me because it's worth it because he's so amazing. We were shooting our second series of our sketch show that would have been a smashing hit were any of us famous or well-known, but as it was, we just put these way elaborate over-the-top things on YouTube, and we were like, we love them. So we were shooting an episode that was a sequel to Zach and his fiancée, Sarah, who plays the immortal Mr. Yin in the movie.
Oh, great.
In this first sketch, they're meeting with a wedding planner because they were engaged and they were about to get married, and the wedding planner ends up being a vampire and Sarah slays her. So the sequel was going to be the wedding photographer, and we had the woman, oh my God, Susanna, and she plays...
Mirror Girl?
Yes. No. Yes. So she plays Mirror Girl, and then... who was playing the werewolf? Oh my God, this part you're going to have to cut out because I'm such a mess.
Werewolf.
Fucking A. She's amazing. She's a friend of Zach's, MFA, colleague. And Zach did his MFA at ART. And she really amazing. She has a really well-known role in she was in the Nick and like all of this stuff. Like really, she's a great actor. And she was like, yeah, I'll throw you guys a bone and come and do this day. So we were like, okay, here, let me start over in a way that's not going to be such a mess. So the sequel to this, they're meeting with their wedding photographer, and the wedding photographer and the wedding photographer's assistant, who ends up being Susanna, who played Mirror Girl. She's gonna take their photo, and she's this like Russian oligarch, and in the end she turns into a werewolf. And Sarah has to slay her, and Zach is just terrified of the marriage process. Well, Anthony was our DP's friend who lived in like north of Albany, I feel like, or lived in Albany, and he was like
1-8 represent.
Something like he was going through a breakup or something at the time. Yes, hell yeah. Are you Troy?
Huh?
Where are you up there?
So I'm from Albany. Like I grew up in Albany.
Oh, brilliant.
So anytime there was a joke that was like, the big city, Albany, I like laughed my ass off.
Well, I spent all my summers in Scroon Lake growing up. So yeah. I felt a kindred spirit to it. So we lucked out in that it was something like that. It was like he was going through a breakup or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I'll throw you a bone and come down to New York for the weekend. I do practical effects. I do makeup, and he decked her out in this werewolf that was like unfucking believable, that he did like on the side of in Murder Alley in Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is a really fun place to shoot, but not a great name. Is that in
the Dumbo area?
Yes, yeah.
Underneath the bridge.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. It was like this. That was one of the reasons why we decided to make this movie, is because we were like, we could do this in a day. This will be fine. We just fell in love with his work. His work is amazing. And so he made the helmet. He did like a lot of the various and he had a puppet on set. No one ever sees it. It's my favorite part of the movie. It's when Sarah Smith is doing shots in the back with the demon commuter who's like, a skull is on fire. In the foreground, there's this little puppet that's like just having a conversation with somebody off to the side.
Oh my God, I have to go back and look for it.
Yeah, it's my favorite little thing in the whole movie. But he was just amazing. He was amazing. My helmet fell off halfway through filming and cracked in half. So he glued it back together like on site. He did the flag. He had the little pile of blood for the senator after he'd gotten impaled. Like all these things that made
the Hercules costume was fantastic.
Shout out to Michael Joseph Murray. I I told Allie this last week when we kind of had a little meeting, is that I directed him in a staged reading of a musical
really?
like a year ago, like last August.
Yeah.
He's amazing,
And he's great.
isn't he? He's
Yeah.
so funny.
great.
He's so
easy
smart.
to work
He's so
with.
nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when I saw him in the Hercules, and because that's his real voice, like that's his.
Yeah.
He has a movie voice, like a movie commentator voice, and I'm just like, this perfect, fucking perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, but with so now I'm going to tangent on the tangent. But with every actor that we cast, we got like 50 submissions. One was so perfect we would have spent every dollar we had to get this person, and nobody else would have worked. Like for every person that we put into these roles, so we were like, he was amazing, and we had it was amazing. Like we had no idea that we were going to get somebody that good. And then what we were talking about earlier, that they end up all being amazing human beings, is insane.
Yeah.
So anyway, we would email Anthony in the middle of a script rewrite and be like, "Hey, Hercules needs to have a decapitated lion on his head." And this would be like a week before, and we'd be like, "We found this lion on Amazon. Can you make it work?" And he'd be like, "I guess." Like he's so soft spoken.
Yeah.
We're just so
So calm.
calm.
Oh, I
It
love
kills
that.
So
me
calm.
because Brandon, Anthony, and Sarah, who was also doing the set design and deck, it was amazing. Yes, production
she was not a
designer.
production
She was great. We had you guys in a scene together that was so funny, where they are like these three townies that are like have no powers and are just sitting on the lawn, and we had to cut it for time and pacing. But he is just sitting there eating, Anthony, these disgusting pickled eggs.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, and everybody's talking about what superpower they'd have, and he's kind of like, "I'm just happy to be here," and he's so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And that's just so who he is too. Like with all of the craziness and stress, and like everyone was great and in good spirits and like awesome to work with, but he was just like so calm among all of it. He was just like 100% fine regardless of anything that was happening around him. Like he was probably the one person when we were like, we need to reshoot that thing. He was like, okay.
He was, yeah.
Like,
all right,
fine.
get it done. Yeah, I could never tell. He must have felt. We were also like stressed. That he must have felt it too, but you could just like never tell.
I'm sure. Yeah.
He was just
Yeah.
like,
Not to toot my own horn, but Caleb here, I had the pleasure to direct his original one act in the rep season, PDU, and stuff like that.
fantastic.
And that's how the three of us kind of, our relationship, Brandon acted, was that lead actor in the play. I directed, Caleb wrote it. But there was like a rehearsal process where we were kind of going up, and it was like, Caleb looks at me, he's like, "You have the patience of an angel." And I was like, "Good, now let's get to work."
Yeah.
So it's like, you kind of have to, it's interesting because it's not everybody has the ability to like, not like go crazy when you're stressed and pressure, like under pressure.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because the film, I'm assuming as I get into our own projects and things like that they're little things, but the amount of prep work that has to be done, the amount of like emails, the amount of texts, the amount of phone calls, the amount of just making sure everything is ready, making sure you fucking get up on time, make sure the trains are running so that you can get to the location. Okay. It's that it's not for everybody for sure. And anybody who decides to be in this like career path, enter the entertainment business, acting, directing, whatever, it's like, we're nuts, but I can't think of doing anything else.
It's amazing because the experience itself of doing it is one that exactly like that I would probably never do again, to be honest, because exactly built in that way. I'm finally now getting the itch. I like want to make another film, but it took a while because it takes so much away from you. But so I would never want to do it again, but if like given the chance to relive my life, I would do it again 1,000 times because it is this like special, intense. I can't believe that we just were in the moment that much thinking about, and I mean for the years leading up to the shoot and then the shoot and the time after, thinking about, okay, the next shot that has to get done, the next thing, and just trusting each other and having faith in the process that something would happen if we just didn't stop. And what was amazing about having the three of us and then Allie coming in, at any given moment, one of us would give up. I mean, that's just like human nature over 4 years. But whenever that was happening, and sometimes two people would get close. And whenever that was happening, the person who had like the most to give would dig deep and like bring it. And we all took turns in that, being in that place. They would bring everything back. And it's the whole process of making it. It was art in and of itself. Like it was more theater than a lot of the theater I ever made. This like one moment in time, this one memory that, there's trauma in it, and there's joy, and there's love, and there's hate. There was like everything in those 4 years of the whole spectrum of human experience. So it was pretty intense. It really was pretty intense. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think too, it's also important that like to note that it's really different to make your own thing than to sign on for somebody else's thing. Because I will say that like the experience and feelings for Zero Issue and for a lot of the other films I've worked on since then, not being, I mean, I'm involved creatively as a producer, but it's a different thing than when it's a thing that you wrote. When it's coming from like, you know, the earliest days of conception coming from you, you've been with this project so long. I think it's always good to have that outside person there, because even in those moments where you trade off giving up and stuff, the original team that's been with the concept from the Post-it note phase is going to burn out faster than the person that came in during pre-production. Right. And I think that's something that I was aware of happening because I shot something that I wrote last year. And I remember watching the stress and like not really knowing what the difference was. And that kind of pressure and responsibility when you're producing something that you've creatively built on the page is also very different stress-wise than when you're the person who buys into the thing and loves this project, but it didn't come from you. It's two different kinds of stress.
Yes.
So always having that outside person, I think for me is part of why I like working with other teams where I haven't built the script, because I like being that person in there, because you can kind of remind the bubble that you're like, you're fine. You have backup now.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
And it's like a life preserver. It really is. There can be times where you're like, I don't know. I mean, we're in a time right now where Allie and I are the ones who can give more to this, where Zach and Matt had to be like, guys, it's been half a decade. We've loved making it. We've got to take a step back. You know, and we're like, that's okay. We can handle this part. So, I mean, I think, and, you know, it's every little step of it has its own challenges like that. I'm thinking right now, for whatever reason, about the fact that it's finished and how it was finished. Because in theater, you have opening night, and that's like the beautiful thing about it is like it's going to be done where the first ticket is sold, whether you fucking like it or not. It's done at that point. And that's where I think I got the "it's your set" thing from, because my tradition has always been to go up to my actors, and I don't like to give notes after opening night. I haven't done super long runs where it would be necessary, and I would amend it for that. But when you're doing a short run, like at rep, I like to kind of be like, "We're all done, guys. It's yours now. Goodbye." Like, I'm done. I don't have any more to give. So with this, there wasn't that. And it was very hard to get to the point to be like, it's finished. And I even think do you guys watch The Office? Obviously I do. We made a mockumentary. But there's this wonderful moment in The Office where Michael Scott thinks that he can declare bankruptcy by like shouting it in the middle. He walks into the bullpen and he's like, I declare bankruptcy. And he thinks like his debts will go away.
And Oscar's just like, that's not how that works. You know that, right?
I basically did that with this movie being finished. I think I sent that email like in Michael Scott voice, writes, I declare Zero Issue is finished. And in the middle of the pandemic, I sent an email and I was like, I know there's 3 shots that aren't done. I'm going to finish them in Premiere. We're going to post it. It's done. And it was, we just had to do that to move on to the next phase.
Yeah. What you guys used to edit the film? Premiere?
Yeah, AJ, who cuts brilliantly and cuts a lot on not on what's help me out, shit.
Right.
No.
Frame IO?
No, the
Sony Vegas? No, I'm just kidding.
No, the other one. The TV one.
Oh, yeah.
It's the COVID brain. I blame everything on COVID.
Hell yeah.
Avid. What the hell's wrong with me?
Avid,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Oh my God.
AJ, who cuts in Avid, a software that everyone has heard of, and that's like the industry standard for him, was livid at us that we were like, please cut this in Premiere. But he, again, only thought he'd be cutting for a couple weekends because it was supposed to be a short film. Then we made him cut in it for 2 years. But we wanted it because we did all the effects in After Effects. And so the idea was that they would talk to each other seamlessly. And I do think that ended up happening. So we did the whole thing in Premiere, much to AJ's chagrin. But now he's like an expert at Premiere. Love it or hate it, he's got both.
He just got an extra thing to add to his resume.
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that you have a hard out, so we'll try to start wrapping up. But so with Zero Issue being in festivals now, is it we're finishing off this run of festivals and then seeing what's going on with it?
Yeah,
after that?
I think we're trying to give it a chance to be in festivals when the world is a little more amenable to that. So we are applying to a lot of 2021 festivals, and once that journey completes, whenever that may be, we will certainly try to find that little last bit of distribution for it if we can get it on Prime or Amazon or whatever, or on Netflix would be great. But I'm getting to that wonderful place with it where I've gotten everything that I needed to get out of it and then some. And that, at some point, making a independent film is inherently a selfish project. It's selfless for so many phases, but it's inherently a selfish project. You're like, okay, why am I doing this? And what do I want to get out? What do I want to say? We tried to set goals that we could control the outcome of. We can't control whether or not it wins festivals. We can't even control whether or not it gets into them. We can just kind of control if we're satisfied with what we've made. And then, did people see it? Did people think it was funny? The comic book community has responded really well, and they like it. And that is great. And all of that experience is so baked in. It's like feeling full after a meal. It feels, I feel good on it, sort of. I don't know about you, Allie.
Yeah, I definitely do too. I think the end goal for me is just to get as many people to see it as possible. And I also think too, somewhat selfishly, I think almost more important. That's not true. It's not more important than people seeing the film. I think seeing the film is very important. But I'm glad that we're getting to do things like this and have Jim talk about process and stuff, because there is one specific moment from shooting for me that, as much as I loved the project and loved the team before this, that it was the thing that made me buy in forever to go through the full post process and the festival submissions and everything else. That I personally not only want people to see the movie, but I also want them to know the artists on the team. Because it was one moment where I was like, oh, everybody here is a good person. Yeah. Not that I didn't think they were good people before, but it was I desperately needed people on set in that moment. And they kind of rallied around me in a great way. I didn't realize I needed the support at the time, but it was wonderful.
But it was one of those magical things where it was such a great group of people, which it isn't always that way.
It was right before we did Jim's scene. It was the night before the festival thing. Right. And Drew and I were the last ones to leave set, and I think it was 1 a.m. when we were casually strolling on over to dinner, and he was in the car, and I was like, Drew, you have to turn the car around. And he was like, what? And I was like, we didn't cook any of the food for the scene tomorrow. You have to take me to Jim's house right now. Because we had to cook. It was all frozen food, and it was going to take 5 hours to make it all edible, which is when we had to go back to set. Mm-hmm. So he drove and dropped me off, and I was like, just bring me food whenever you get back for the night. And he came back, and it was Drew, Matt, Jim, and Adam, who brought me 3 ciders and one of everything from dinner, probably stuff I couldn't even eat. And they just sat in the kitchen and made jokes as I made frozen food for an hour and a half until I kicked everybody out because they needed to go to sleep. And then Adam was with me up for a little while, but I was just it was just one of those things where you're I can't even think straight. I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And all I was expecting was for Drew to come back with food, and the whole team was don't know how this happened. I'm so sorry. Like, let me be a human being with you right now, which was great.
Oh, it's so great. I mean, it takes a village for sure. It takes an entire city.
It takes an alley too, and
an alley.
The horror of it is we cut 95% of the shots that had that food in it.
True,
but
true. It was the right move.
But the 1 or 2 times we see it, you believe what we're seeing because you see all that food.
Mm-hmm.
Just how it happened, man. Oh man,
unreal. Okay, last question. Hypothetical. Somebody comes to you and is like, "Hey, we want a season of Zero Issue. You guys got a story ready?"
I mean, we're ready to argue over what the story will be incessantly.
There you go.
I think that this is all done unless there's a way to really do it professionally with the support that we need to do it, as our jobs, full time. Yeah, right, I think that the whole team would be there in a heartbeat. And we are ready. It depends who's asking the question, because we're ready for a full season. We're ready for a comic book line. We're ready for a sequel. We're ready for a feature. So we are ready for whatever that could be. And that would be a wonderful surprise at this point. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. I'm going to throw that one up on my vision board.
Yeah. Please.
Yin and Yang break him out of prison at the end of the movie. That's spoiler alert. So
what?
Well, speaking of, really quick, the credits, the animation for the credits, I thought was one of the best parts of the film, because it just was. Any of that kind of animation always throws me, because I'm not that. I'm an artist, but I'm not that kind of an artist.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Same.
So with the feel of the old side-scrolling video games and the superheroes and the music, and it's just
that was mostly just an example of us following our joy. Like, we talked about it, we were like, it's not a video game movie, it doesn't make a ton of sense, and Zach was like, yeah, but we love this kind of game and it'll look fucking cool, and Adam and his partner Clancy are ready to make it, so it'll be better. And we were like, great, let's do it. And so we were just like, this makes us happy.
So awesome.
And I thought the ending was unclear, and it helps a little. The idea was that this golden ring shows up on the wall at the very end, and you're like, oh, they're here, and no one was getting that. And so it's kind of nice that you see their 2 cartoon characters, and then Carl and Dale kind of escape, and you're kind of, it's maybe not all spelled out, but you're kind of like, oh, I sort of see the ending that they had in mind this way, which is...
Yeah.
And then it's in such a fun way.
Yeah.
We're like,
and you want
all
all these Kickstarter backers and stuff, you want them seen. So it keeps people watching to look at that sort of shit, which is great. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Where can our audience find you guys?
Always a good question. Allie has all the New York Picture Company handles and stuff.
There's the New York Picture Company site. If you message us on Instagram, you will be talking to me. I will reply to you there. Right now, our YouTube link is private because of the festival rules about premieres, and we're streaming and that kind of stuff. Our trailer is up on YouTube where you can watch, and then as soon as the parameters lift and we can make the YouTube link public again, it will be back on YouTube, hopefully sooner rather than later.
We'll probably, but when does this come out?
I'll probably be give it like a week or so.
Well, I'll make it live again. So the festival was in is over, and we'll make it live again until another festival wants it, and then we'll take it off out of respect for them. But
yeah,
perfect. Well, our audience can watch out for that. We'll definitely post a link
Thank you.
when it goes live again. And thank you guys so much.
I feel like we scratched the surface.
I know there's so many more questions I wanted to ask, but next time
we'll have you guys on again.
Yeah, come back anytime. This is great. Really, really amazing conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
I'll do it again anytime.